The news of the day is Stinky Fingers Don Lemon has been arrested. This was after a failed attempt to arrest him, which resulted in a magistrate not signing off on the warrant because they didn't find probable cause. Robert Barnes doesn't even believe that Don Lemon should be charged, and certainly not on the basis of the charging documents that were submitted to the judge the last time. I personally, in my humble opinion, and I'll defer to the opinions of the bigger brains of people who actually practice law in America. That doesn't mean I'm not going to say, I've heard what you have to say, and I'm going to choose to believe my own eyes. I believe Don Lemon should have been charged. I believe that what Don Lemon did was a crime on video. I'll present to you that argument today before we get into the news of his arrest, because he has finally been arrested. There are some people on the internet saying, oh, Viva and Barnes now have to eat crow. Pam Bondi finally got somebody arrested. And these are respectful discussions and respectful disagreements, and I will humorously needle people who make such absurd arguments. If this is the notch in Pam Bondi's belt or hat, whatever the hell the expression is, the feather in her cap, the notch in her belt, that they finally secured charges against Don Lemon, who literally broadcast what I believe to be a crime to the world after having failed to do it the first time. I said this a while back. There is reforming a corrupt enterprise, and the FBI and the DOJ under Biden's auto pen presidency was thoroughly corrupt. It needs to be reformed. There is reform, and then there's administration. There is reform, and there is day-to-day management. Arresting somebody who, a year into the administration, in my view, commits a crime on camera is not reform. You don't get to say, hallelujah, we arrested Don Lemon a year into the administration after he quite literally harassed and participated in the harassment of Christians who were worshiping, quite literally interfered with church. You don't get to say, eat crow, black pillars. What you get to say is, congratulations on doing your freaking job. Now, how about that reform? That being said, to anybody who says that to me, whoop-de-frickin'-do. She got the arrest on the second time around. Good. That's called, doing your job. At some point in time, you don't take a victory lap every time you successfully do what it is you were hired to do. They got it. And we'll start with the story first, or at least the headline. Then we're going to flash back to the actual elements of criminality and the meltdown that the left is having as a result of this. They say unprecedented. Unprecedented. Don Lemon, a journalist, is arrested in Donald Trump's America. He's the next Bukele, rounding up and arresting. Holy hell, you people are idiots. Anybody saying that is an idiot. I'm going to not even weigh my words here. If you use the word unprecedented to qualify the arrest of Stinky Fingers Don Lemon, you are an idiot. You are either stupid, you are either a liar, or you are a perfect combination of both stupid and a liar. There is nothing unprecedented about arresting Don Lemon, even if a slew of other journalists hadn't been arrested, harassed before Don Lemon. There would be nothing unprecedented about it on its face, because he literally posted video of him in the process of committing a crime, in my view. Maybe he's got defenses, and maybe they will be successful. Maybe he'll find a judge that will toss these charges. Maybe he'll find a jury that will nullify these charges. Wouldn't be the first time. Anybody saying it's unprecedented is a dumb, lying moron, and they should know that. They should look in the mirror and they should say, I'm a dumb, lying moron. But my goodness, at least I like looking at myself in the mirror. Don Lemon arrested by federal authorities after protested in Minnesota church services. Attorney General Pam Bondi said in a Friday post on X that Lemon was arrested alongside three others, quote, in connection with the coordinated attack on City's church in St. Paul, Minnesota. Notice the terminology, by the way. That might arguably be a little bit better than the terminology they didn't use in the last charging documents when a judge said, you didn't even allege enough for me to arrest him. You got to bear with me with that audio thing there. Lemon, 59, was taken into custody by federal agents in Los Angeles, where he was covering the Grammy Awards. His attorney, Abby Lowell, who's popped his face up again, said in a statement, Attorney General Pam Bondi said on Friday, X post that Lemon was arrested alongside three others, yada, yada, yada. Details of the charges against the four were not immediately available. I was looking for the PDF of the arresting documents to see what they alleged to amplify what was clearly lacking from the last time they presented the affidavit for probable cause, whatever. We'll get to it when we get to it, but I suspect they were a little more fleshed out in the allegations of how Don Lemon actively participated, not just as a journalist, but actively participated in a conspiracy to knowingly, deliberately, and predictably interfere and intimidate churchgoers. We'll get there. However, the Justice Department promised to pursue charges against Lemon after the journalist covered the protests at the church on January 18th. Instead of investigating the federal agents who killed two peaceful Minnesota protesters, the Trump Justice Department is devoting its time, attention, resources to this arrest, and that is the real indictment of wrongdoing in this case, Lowell said. Shut your stupid face, Abby Lowell. We'll get into the cases that he's been into in a second, and if I don't remember to, remind me. Partisan hackery. And he's too smart to be dumb, so he can only be a liar, like 96.7% of all lawyers out there. This unprecedented attack on the First Amendment and transparent attempt to distract attention from many crises facing this administration will not stand. Unprecedented. Abby Lowell, you're too smart to call yourself an idiot, so you are just a liar. Don will fight these charges vigorously and throughout the court. Lemon's representative and a representative for his husband did not immediately return a request. Lemon's arrest is the latest development in the federal immigration crackdown in Minneapolis, in which two citizens have been... Do you see the framing here? Don Lemon was arrested for interfering with church services, conspiring to, and knowingly, as I will present evidence, having intimidated churchgoers to feel that they can no longer remain in the church to attend the services that they were there to attend. Three people who disrupted the same church. It's one person's disruption is another person's intimidation. One person's terrorizing is another person's disruption. Three other people were arrested. Demonstrators gathered at the services because its pastor allegedly works for immigration, ICE. All right, that's the bare bones of what's going on. Now, you want to know why I think that Don Lemon should have been charged, that the allegations were there, the evidence to support the charges were there? Don't take my word for it, people. Take Don Lemon's words for it. When he went there, and he literally, and I mean quite literally, announced that he was going to interrupt church services and was participating in a conspiracy to do so. This is an element, the piece of evidence that I would posit to you, indicates that he knew the churchgoers were intimidated. And then the only question is going to be whether or not he bears the responsibility for that intimidation. You know, when we're talking about the requisite acts for KKK law violation or a FACE Act violation, intimidation is one of the criteria, or at least one of the considerations. Listen to this. Acknowledgement that they were intimidated, terrorized almost.
Watch this guy here, look, he's hugging his kid. And, you know, I just imagine it's uncomfortable and traumatic for the people here. But again, careful, it's very slippery right here. Yeah. It's uncomfortable and traumatic for the people here, but that's what really, careful, please, really slippery. Not kidding. Okay. That's what protesting is about. And so...
uncomfortable and traumatic, that is what protesting is all about. That's also what documenting your own criminality is all about. But again, don't take my word for it. Take Don Lemon's word for it. I was going to start the show with this as a joke because it would have been my golf voice intro, but it would have actually been from the episode where I played this. But listen to Don Lemon talk about it himself.
Around the channel for long enough. You know that probably realize this in
mayhem.
We show
An operation that
he only now probably realizes in retrospect he posted evidence of a crime. Behold,
this is an operation that is secret, that they invited folks out.
This is Operation Pull Up, more of a clandestine operation. We show up somewhere. They don't expect us to come there. And then we disrupt business as usual.
Then we disrupt business as usual, people, after terrifying and terrorizing the people at the church to leave the church. But don't worry. There's more. And if you had any doubts about his intent behind what he did, I present to you the man himself, Don Lemon. Eric Daughtry posting this earlier. Listen to what Don Lemon says right here. And then you try to argue that he was just there acting as a journalist. And it would be unprecedented that a journalist should get arrested. I'll get back to that in a second. Listen to what Don Lemon says right here.
Into Minneapolis a little bit ago and did some reconnaissance on the ground.
I did some reconnaissance on the ground. Let me just play that again in case you missed it, because it's almost like I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. Maybe they went in and amplified the allegations against Don Lemon. He is on camera saying that he did some reconnaissance on the ground as part of his conspiracy to intimidate and disrupt church services.
Some reconnaissance, did some and did some reconnaissance on the ground. I'm speaking to an organization there that's gearing up for resistance and protest.
I did some reconnaissance on the ground. Almost like I'm aiding and abetting in domestic terrorism of sorts.
I've been pleasantly surprised to see the community coming together. Diverse community. If you see this, when we first pulled up, we're like, wait a minute, which operation are we at? And as it turns out, because we're like, well, this is kind of MAGA coded, right? So the American flag or whatever, but these are resistance protesters. They're planning an operation that we're going to follow them on.
Resistance is the new word for domestic terrorists. And he helped do some reconnaissance for them. So good for you, Don. That's definitely not incriminating.
I can't tell you exactly what they're doing, but it's called Operation Pull Up. And it's Takima Armstrong, and she has been doing this since George Floyd, Dante Wright, and others, where they surprise people, catch them off guard, and hold them to account. And so that's what we're doing here. And then
catch them off guard and hold them to account. Almost sounds like forcible confinement, but I will not get lawyery.
That after we do this operation, you'll see it live. And these operations are surprise operations. Again, can't tell you where to.
After we do this operation, we can't tell you about this operation until it's done. After we do this operation, we're doing it live. Oh, but I'm just documenting it. After I do a little recon for them, after they invite me, after we document it, I'll tell you about it after we do it, because it's going to be live, and I'm just a journalist doing recon for domestic terrorists who are targeting churches. And if you had any doubt as to the intent of Stinky Fingers Don Lemon, I mean, this ordinarily, if this were done to a black church by a group of white protesters, if this were done to a synagogue, it would be a hate crime. Not in Minnesota. But if you had any doubts as to the intentions of Don Lemon in doing recon for a resistance group that was targeting church services, look no further than whatever her name is, wench on the left, and Don Lemon himself.
And there's a certain degree of entitlement. I think people who are, in the religious groups like that, it's not the type of Christianity that I practice, but I think that they're entitled, and that entitlement comes from a supremacy, a white supremacy. And they think that this country was built for them, that it is a Christian country, when actually we left England because we wanted religious freedom. It's religious freedom, but only if you're a Christian and only if you're a white male, pretty much. And so, yeah, I absolutely 100%, but it's an intimidation tactic. And, I said, I don't understand how I've become the face of it when I was a journalist. I do understand that I'm the biggest name there.
I'm the biggest name there. Can you imagine the ego of all of this? Like, this is what he needed for self-validation. I'm the biggest name. You're the face of it because you're the idiot that thought, oh, by the way, the other guy's the face of it too, the one with the beard who also got arrested because he also live streamed his own criminality. You're the face of it because you are so stupid, you actually posted to the public while narrating in real time all of the elements of the crime in which you were participating. But no, it's racism, Don.
And I'm also, as I was on with my producers this morning, you and Kylie talk all the time. My producers were saying, I said, how did I become the face of this? And my producer said, Don, you're a gay black man in America. And there's a certain degree.
Did you imagine that? They're going after him because he's a gay black man. I never would have known he was gay if he didn't talk about it all the time. I guess I would have known he was black, although I do believe he has some European blood on his mother's lineage. He's the face of it because he's a gay black man, and not because he documented storming a church to interfere with one of the most sacred rights in all of humankind, the right to worship in peace. Racism. But now, because this is a dog whistle, I forget what those birds are that all flock together and then, they change directions together. And the question is there a leader? Do they communicate with each other, or do they just read off each other in real time as they do it? Is it like coordinated, or is it just follow the leader? Racism. The amount of people coming out now and claiming that this is racist, unprecedented, dumb liars, racist, dumb liars who are blinded by their own racial animosity. Listen to Eli Mistal. Listen to this.
It is an expression of white supremacy. And so when I look for constitutional justification for these arrests, it's obviously not in the Constitution. It's obviously not in the Constitution anymore. Because there was something in the original Constitution that would have allowed them to arrest a Black journalist like Don Lemon. And that was called the Fugitive Slave Clause in Article 4 of the original Constitution, which allowed the government to reclaim escaped property should that property have successfully made it to a free state.
I think they had a common law criminal code that would have allowed anybody, white, Black, Jew, Muslim, Christian, whomever, to be arrested if they broke the law. This is the soft bigotry of low expectations, which is just bigotry coming from prominent members, so-called prominent members of the Black community. Arrest a Black man and it's racism, white supremacy. There are many other laws on the books that authorize this arrest. Other than that, what you just said, Eli, is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Everyone in the room is now dumber for having watched it. Everyone in the room is now dumber for having listened to your words. It's racism. It's slavery to arrest a Black man who has committed a crime, allegedly. It gets worse, though. And if you have sensitive ears to the N-word, earmuffs. This is Cornel West. I can't even summarize this. I'm just going to play about 30 seconds of this.
Now, I come from a people who have been demonized and vilified and terrorized for 250 years in the American experiment. That's what it is to niggerize a dignified Black people. Make sure that they are intimidated, terrified, full of fear, and not able to straighten their backs up. But thank God the Black Freedom Movement straightens our backs up. Well, what we're witnessing, and this is why the larger picture is important here, we're at we're right on the edge cliff in terms of the possibility of America sustaining itself as a social experiment in the best sense, or just becoming an empire full of might and force. So when you niggerize a whole country, you start treating all of your citizens the way Black folk have been treated for 250 years.
Look at that. She's like, oh, this makes sense. This speaks to me. This literally makes no sense. To terrorize the population the way he's arguing the Black population uniquely has been terrorized over the last 250 years. The term that he gave it literally makes no sense, even if that's what he was arguing for. Arguing that the shooting of Renee Good and Alex Preddy is a form of terrorism. It should strike fear in the hearts of people who want to act stupid in front of armed law enforcement, interfere with the enforcement of federal law, and create dangerous situations that escalate out of control. Awful, and I'm not one of the ones who say, make any lighthearted jokes about anybody getting what they deserved. There is a difference between getting what you predictably put yourself in a situation to get versus getting what you deserve. Sometimes people get a whole hell of a lot more than what they deserved, but it's nonetheless entirely predictable under the circumstances that they put themselves in. Racism, terrorism, because the unprecedented move to arrest a journalist, bringing it right back to the beginning. Journalists that they have arrested or terrorized under the Biden administration. Steve Baker. Now I'm going to forget the Horn, Stephen Horn, arrested for literally doing nonviolent journalism, not participating, not conspiring, on January 6th. James O'Keefe, raided, phone seized, terrorized, and a slew of others. Nick Shirley, demonized, threatened. Nick Sortor, assaulted. I just had him on the other day talking about what happened to him in Minnesota. That wasn't state sanctioned. That was just the brown coats of the state doing the state's work to terrorize journalists, not to document what's going on in Minnesota. Unprecedented. Unprecedented bullcrap. What's unprecedented is that it finally took a so-called journalist literally committing a crime on camera, the second time around finally getting arrested, whereas bona fide journalists who never broke the law, never partook in criminality, were brutalized, terrorized, threatened, intimidated, assaulted under the Biden administration, and all of these idiots crying racism and crying boo-hoo didn't say boo when it happened. And you want to go ahead and get the stupidest takes you can possibly imagine, do not worry, I'm not going to put you through 3 minutes of listening to TMZ for political insight, let alone factually tenable assertions. Listen to this moron. You want, viral videos of the day of people in compromising positions? That's what TMZ is good for. Good for political analysis based on real facts and real knowledge? Not so much.
So the Trump administration wonders why people are saying that they are trying to form a dictatorship. Well, look at the landscape. Arresting Don Lemon, who covered a protest in Minneapolis, is just insane, ridiculous, dictator-like. This is the playbook that dictators use to destroy democracies and take the will of the people away. It is as simple as that. The First Amendment is the First Amendment for a reason. It is considered the preferred amendment when you have to start balancing what's more important.
I'm not listening to this guy.
The framers of the
Constitution anymore. But yeah, it's unbelievable when you don't know the basic facts of what happened. And I've laid it out for you now. You have Don Lemon's acts, statements, consequences of his acts and statements, and the idiots, hypocrites, liars, and losers on the internet crying foul as though he's the victim. And now you know better.